Dopamine swipe, dopamine swipe. Followers, likes, double tap. Now they control your life.
What is going on, beautiful people? Welcome back to the 817 podcast, where we talk about the lovely city of Fort Worth, Tarrant County, and all the amazing things that go into it, from culture, politics, business. Today, Jimmy and I are gathering on a Saturday because my boy's leaving.
A nice rainy Saturday morning.
It was rainy. I walked outside and I was like, oh, wasn't ready for that.
Yeah, what a weird week.
What a weird December. I feel like it's not that cold.
Yeah.
Or January or winter or whatever you call it.
It's for sure the warmest January I can remember since living here.
Yeah. I mean, it's been like 60s.
Yeah. And I don't know if there's really a sign of it getting colder. I mean, I'm sure that February will probably, plunge into an Arctic tundra and have 10 degrees all of a sudden for a couple of days.
Oh, I guess we did have that little incident. We just didn't have any snow or rain when it was 10 degrees earlier in the time. But what's up, people? We're going to go ahead and talk about a lot of short stories. This week was relatively slow, but a lot of little updates. So we're going to go through some updates about Texas A&M, updates about City Council, but then some business updates that I think were interesting. Some people have announced that they're going to run for certain districts, so we'll tell you those as well. And then head wins and losses like we always do. So let's go ahead and dive in to the first story.
Yeah, that is that the new city council chamber that I thought we already broke ground on will not actually be opening this year, but should be finished early next year now because of a delay in the permitting process where they found that a floodway easement was interfering with where they were planning to build. So they're having to rework some of the plans, I guess. This is just something that came up, and it's aren't you guys the ones that should know where all of this stuff is already?
Yeah, right. And it seems like the partner, the person who's working on the building's pissed. He just based off of the quote, he's like, yeah, I don't know why it's going to take this long, and things just start popping up out of nowhere. It just makes our lives even harder. They seem upset, the people we're working with to remodel the building.
Yeah, it's just it feels like another example of where Fort Worth's planning department is just not living in the year 2023, and we just don't seem to have our act totally together when it comes to trying to build new stuff in the city.
Yep, and it looks like look about how old school and frustrating this has to be. The Farley and his team submitted a 420-page document to the U.S. Army Corps applying for Section 408 permits. I mean, it's a thing, especially on the water. So you have to make sure you're not going to impact water height, water in and out. So, but I just can't believe we're now, a year into maybe buying this thing.
Yeah, it feels very far into this process to all of a sudden be oh, we're not actually started yet, because I feel like we've had multiple stories that are about how we've started.
Yeah, and you have the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers who will set a 30-day review window for the permit that was submitted December 9th by Farley and his team. But I think the interesting part is how intertwined federal government is into the city of Fort Worth, even though I feel because U.S. Army Corps is helping us with Panther Island. Mm-hmm. Now I didn't know they're also we need their blessing for the city hall, for this Fort Worth.
Yeah, I wonder it must tie into the Central City Flood Project, which is part of Panther Island, because on a normal planning situation, the Army Corps is not involved.
Yeah.
So it seems like because of whatever is happening with rerouting the river in Panther Island has a downstream effect on this, and I guess they didn't know it until late in the process.
Yep. And I know last pod we talked about the upgrade of Texas A&M, and we talked about Panther Island, but now you forget west of the downtown area, you also have a new city hall. So downtown by 2032 is going to look completely different.
Yeah, and not even to mention the library being sold and whatever the developer's going to do with that. Yeah, lots of life being breathed into the area, everywhere in the area that does not include Sundance Square.
Let's go ahead and hit the Texas A&M Fort Worth downtown campus update.
Yeah, we're really creative, and everyone was really excited to reveal the name of the downtown Fort Worth Texas A&M location. And surprise, surprise, it's Texas A&M Fort Worth.
I know, like that was kind of why was that exciting?
Please tell me this was an email and not a meeting. Like, you did not gather people on Zoom to be like, all right, what are we going to call this thing? Texas A&M Fort Worth. Okay.
Geniuses. Like, I mean, especially because we were going with the whole, like, we were all fired up around Aggie Land North, like, you know, saying those words. That felt a little more fun, you know, a little bit more enjoyable. But hey, we're here. I mean, that picture we use in Fort Worth Report, man. This picture that's on Fort Worth Report, to me, like when we talk about the Fort Worth Way, which I know that's a discussion that Fort Worth panel is going to have. Fort Worth Report's having a panel February 16th, I believe, about the Fort Worth Way. And it has Dante Williams from Community Frontline, Betsy Price, and Jennifer Trevino from Leadership Fort Worth doing a panel talking about the Fort Worth Way. Like, this picture is the Fort Worth Way in a nutshell. You got Manny Ramirez, you got Betsy, you got a bunch of old white guys with cowboy boots and cowboy hats, and then they break down on the Texas A&M Fort Worth title with the A&M logo above it. And that's, to me, was always my fear about bringing A&M up here. They are just doubling down on Fort Worth Way cowboy culture.
Yeah, if you thought that Fort Worth had an issue with developing equitably before now, I mean, we see the investment going into the stockyards to lure a largely white tourist population. We see all of this effort and fanfare going into Texas A&M Fort Worth and a predominantly white school. I mean, if you're not in for cowboys and rodeos, then it's kind of feeling a little bit like Fort Worth is ready to say, like, you know, you're going to be on the back burner.
Oh yeah, I mean,
and saying it out loud now.
And if you look at what Fort Worth is from like consumer, right, where the favoriteest conservative town to people who from the rural area wants to travel to. Now College Station was one of the most favorite conservative institutions that parents and who grew up with conservative values promoted their kid to go in A&M,
yeah,
while everyone else went
that
to
liberal
UT energy.
Liberals.
Yeah, the UT energy. So it's like really early in the Texas like college fight. It's like you had this like more city, more progressive. Oh, that's where the UT, but A&M was born out of the same way Fort Worth was born out of like, we want something that's more conservative and more us. And so then you collide the two, the most friendliest city to conservatives and then the most pro-conservative institution. And now we boom and we collide into downtown.
They're calling it a match made in heaven.
Construction is slated to begin this summer on the Law and Education building along Commerce Street, which has a 2025 target completion date. No dates are set for the start of the construction on the other two buildings, the Research and Innovation Building and the Gateway Conference Center and offices. They will be financed with city-issued bonds secured by leases to the A&M system and private sector development firms. Star Telegram continues to report the university says this type of financing will allow the campus to be constructed in about a third of the 15 years it would take for the A&M system to do it alone.
Yeah, and even just seeing the list of people that were there, right? Like it's John Goff, Kay Granger, Kelly Hancock, Tim O'Hare, and then, I mean, Elizabeth Beck is the oddball in that, but she went to A&M. You know, it's not Mark Vesey. It's not Ramon Romero.
Yeah.
It's, you know, we're standing up there and saying what this is.
Yeah, and it looks pretty though. I mean, it looks like a true, got the logos. I mean,
yeah, it looks like another apartment complex that's any other apartment complex that's being built right now.
Yeah. So Texas A&M is one of the largest systems in higher education with a budget of $7.2 billion. Its statewide network of 11 universities and health science centers, 8 state agencies, and the Rellis campus serves more than 152,000 students. And that Aggie Land is going to be downtown, right by Southside. We'll see what happens. We'll see. Let's talk about other alliances that I think goes with the business friendliness of Fort Worth, and that is the energy companies that are either being launched or being doubled down on.
Fort Worth's TXO Energy Partners launched an IPO on the New York Stock Exchange this week, which, that's kind of cool. Like, it's not every day that a Fort Worth company is going public. But Fort Worth-based Morningstar Partners, which will be renamed TXO, has launched its IPO of 5 million common units for limited partner interest in TXO. So that's expected to be priced between $19 and $21 per unit, which will represent a 17% limited partner interest in TXO. It was founded in 2012. It's based on or focuses on conventional oil, natural gas, and natural gas reserves in North America. And basically this money is for them to go out, acquire more land, and keep drilling on it to get oil.
And they operate in downtown. And this is from the former CEO, founder of XTO, who ended up getting bought by Exxon, and everyone got moved, and that made a big impact on the city. Losing all those people.
Yeah.
I mean, I had friends who I was close to, who I remember them now. They all live in Houston and are building families there. So the founder looks to have this new business, taking a different approach, and really accelerating growth. So that I guess that's good for Fort Worth, but it aligns with the culture that's going to be in downtown, right? Mm-hmm. We got Cowboys.
We just moved convinced Dickies to move into downtown offices.
Yeah, so it's going to have it's going to feel very interesting. That's why I wonder how Panther Island gets developed. Do you just double down on everything in there? Is going to double down on it?
Do you make a connection between the stockyards and downtown to make the cattle drive like 10 miles long?
So another kind of business update that we have for you guys is Fort Worth-based BNSF Railway Company announced its 2023 capital investment plan of $3.96 billion. That is going to be important because it's mainly focused on infrastructure and expanding existing projects. The company said it will complete a second main track expansion in Fort Worth, along with other track developments in Missouri, between eastern Kansas, Southern California, New Mexico, Washington, and 2 more in California. In 2022, Fort Worth, they also did a $1.5 billion investment in a 4,500-acre rail facility in Southern California. BNS is owned by Berkshire Hathaway, but has been a huge piece of Fort Worth brand image and success. And I would love to learn more about actually how valuable having such a cohesive railway system be such a mecca and heartbeat for the country here in Fort Worth long term. When you think of, I think there's a lot of, all these fears of deglobalization and all this other stuff that's happening. Like what does us having the tracks in Fort Worth does for us, and like the sustainability of if America ever has to just think about America and can't think about everyone else. Like, I wonder what these allows us to ship on a regular daily basis. What comes in and out of Fort Worth. We were just talking about, because you're headed to Mexico City, we're talking about the relationship between Mexico and America. I'm imagining that the work that we do here impacts all of that, success.
For sure. When I see a company like this announce a capital investment of this sort. I wonder how that feels for the employees who have, had to threaten going on strike just to get paid leave, to get sick days at all.
100%.
And I understand that those are like very separate things, but at the same time, when you look holistically, it's like, okay, we've got $4 billion to invest this year in more infrastructure. Like, people infrastructure is a big part of any company, and the country's going to shut down if BNSF were not able to actually do what they do every day.
It's invested in maintenance projects, replacing upgrading rail, track infrastructure, rolling stock. Sounds like someone's going to get a payout. I don't know what that means. Capital investment also breaks down for $402 million into equipment acquisition. So buying equipment, over $700 million for expansions and efficiency projects. Doesn't seem a lot of human capital investing.
No.
Cool. Well, let's go ahead and move into, you brought this up, and I asked you if it was net good or bad, and we said we don't really know, but I think we should actually talk about it, because it's about North Texas and where we see energy development happening in the city.
Yeah, so Somerville, which is like 30 minutes south of here, has been home to a nuclear power plant for a while now, and there is new investment to be home to that power plant through 2053 now. I think, in my opinion, nuclear power is the most misunderstood of alternative energy resources. It's one of the cleanest, but obviously you have incidents like Chernobyl, which I don't know if you can really call that an incident. Like, an opposing force took it over and then didn't allow it to operate the way it needed to. But because of that, everyone has always been a little bit wary of nuclear power. But it is super clean. And a lot of the image of it, it looks weird on the side of the road, all this smoke coming out of it. Yeah, exactly. But the company's current licenses for 2 nuclear units have the capacity to power 1.2 million homes under normal electricity conditions, but those expire in 2030 and 2033, respectively. It seems like residents are kind of also torn on if this is a good thing to have around, or I think they're at least asking questions, which is fine. Like, if you want to be educated on the potential issues of having a nuclear power plant near you, that's great. It's great to ask questions, especially if you're approaching it from the perspective of wanting to learn. But it's reliable, carbon-free power, and honestly something that if we continue to scale up, especially in a place like Texas where we can't rely on electricity or just oil, natural gas, nuclear power is something that we should be having a serious look at expanding. But the story really talks about how the residents in the area are kind of questioning if the company was actually honest about what the risks were up front. Which it's hard to tell one way or another if that's true, or if that's just perceived risk from the people living in the area.
Yeah, it says that Vistra says Comanche Peak is the county's largest taxpayer, accounting for more than $30 million in state and local tax per year and more than 600 full-time employees. So it also plays a big piece on the economic success in the area. We'll see, but yeah, I think nationally, globally, we need to really get the messaging and branding around nuclear back on track, because it's what can. I think we're trying to jump to the cleanest possibilities. I think too fast, and we need that. We're going to have a gate like nuclear to get us to the innovations that we're trying to get to. So, okay, well, let's go ahead and talk about the upcoming election, people were able to put in their ballots and be able to, on January 18th, submit if they're going to run for city council, school board. I mean, people are announcing water district, which that seems already like relatively competitive. I didn't realize how many people would want to do that. But I guess they saw the perks you get. So maybe,
get a membership to the Fort Worth Club.
Yeah. Drink,
retire and still get some consulting contract where you don't have to do anything.
Yeah, people saw the benefits. They were like, we're coming.
Get your mother-in-law elected to the House of Representatives.
Yeah, fly on planes with David Cook. You know. It's a good gig. So that's actually probably one of my losses from the year is how silent every newspaper media got about David Cook.
Oh yeah,
like think you want to know how you want to talk about power? Look at what happened.
Yeah,
that was like the hottest news for like 48 hours, and then you try to talk to Chris at Fort Worth Report or anyone at the Star Telegram, they just look like
don't even know who David Cook is. never heard of him.
But go ahead and start with District 7. Who's running?
Yeah, this first one. So Leonard Firestone, we talked about last week, announced that he's not running. This first one is Jason Ellis, who looks like he was on a sniper team in Iraq. He is running for District 7. Combat veteran who runs a home services business in Northwest Fort Worth. Served as a sniper in the U.S. Army's 25th Infantry Division. He is running because Fort Worth is the greatest city and the greatest state and the greatest country in the world. Oh, man. So he intends to pick up where Firestone left off, addressing property tax reform. Man, like, both sides of people. Somebody come up with something more creative, more interesting than property tax reform, because none of you have delivered on it. No, every single person puts that on their thing, but then it doesn't change. Like, our appreciation in property value just outpaces property tax increase, and then we have a $33 billion statewide surplus.
It's the middle school kid running for student body president and saying all vending machines are free. Yeah, you're just saying the thing over and over again.
Yeah,
and it's like, okay, that doesn't do anything for us.
Yeah.
And what does being on the sniper team help with you running a city
property tax reform and road infrastructure?
Well, he did say he runs a home service business.
Yeah,
and they got a hyperlink. Oh, it's just to his LinkedIn.
Matrix Plumbing.
There you go. Sometimes you give people a hard time, and then you realize, hey, maybe Firestone wasn't that bad if someone else wins. So we'll see. I'm sure Jason Ellis.
Is that the only announcement for District 7?
Yeah. I'm sure Jason Ellis won't be the only one by himself running. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I wonder if what was his name? Lee, who came runner-up last time.
But wasn't he he's kind of sketch?
No.
Wasn't that
he
one?
was the third place guy was a Mercy Culture guy.
Got it. Yes.
Lee Henderson.
Got it.
I wonder if Lee Henderson would throw his name.
With the good hair? Did he have good hair?
He might be bald.
Never mind. Hey, that's good. That's good hair. All right. And look, we got an ad for the Fort Worth Way. It was literally a thing. February 16th, 7:30 a.m. There's going to be like a whole event about the Fort Worth Way, and Bob Ray Sanders is moderating for Mayor Betsy Price, Jennifer Trevino of Leadership Fort Worth, and Community Frontline Dante Williams. This is a free community event, 7:30 a.m. in our neck of the woods.
I just don't know how, if I were Dante or Jennifer, how I would like get up there and see Betsy Price. What's she gonna say? Is she gonna be like, no, there's not a Fort Worth Way? Like, how do I just can't even take her seriously as a contributor to that conversation,
But sometimes I'm really blown away. why would you want to do this if you were her?
What do you gain out of it?
I know, like why would you go? Like, why would you do? Like, what's the ROI here? Like, I just don't understand where you think you come out and be like, the city feels better about me and my legacy after that. So District 11, yours and I's new district. Rick Ehring, we mentioned this guy. We really didn't know too much about him besides him being a neighborhood advocate. He's a retired advisor and is running for District 11. It's obviously one of the newly run districts. He seems to be involved in this area. Maybe pod level guests here in the next couple months. Maybe we can learn more about him. His quote here is, Fort Worth is a great city, but the pressures our city is facing in terms of inflationary housing prices, a growing population, and the need to provide adequate city services across our neighborhoods are real issues that the city council must deal with. I want to serve on the city council to work to address real problems that affect all of our residents. Kind of the same.
Yeah, but I mean, even like, I don't even know if he's like a person who I like align with or not, but he says that, and I at least look at that and go, yeah, like you seem qualified to do this. Like you seem like a quality candidate, you know?
Yeah.
When your quote is,
yeah,
I like living in the greatest city in the greatest state in the greatest country in the world. Like it just gives off a totally different vibe.
Yeah. And I think one of the predictions that I'll most likely get wrong in this is that 11 will go to a minority. I don't know. I was looking at it. I think they really made 11 in kind of the more like gentrifying areas of this side of the town, like me and your neighborhood, area, and I mean,
yeah,
like
I mean,
all this area. Like, yes, it's traditionally Hispanic and minority populations, but it also seems like the areas where,
yeah, I mean, our neighborhood, I would say, is pretty progressive. Like it's still 85% black and brown. I mean, during election season, probably 10-1 Democrat candidate signs outnumber Republican. But I do agree with you.
Like an Elizabeth Beck wins, like, a progressive white female person, which it would be, is still a minority then.
Yeah.
And I could count that we won that prediction if that one gets right.
Yeah. It does bring in Oakhurst, which is a little bit more, especially now that it butts up to, what's it called? Mercy Culture.
Oh, yeah.
Has run a little bit more gentrified than the Meadowbrooks have.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's like, can you get the southern part of this district out to vote is always a big question.
Yeah. So that's what we have currently on who's running city council.
Yeah. Do you want to open up the water district ones also, or just keep moving?
Oh, we can. Let me look at them.
Next, one of the water district seats, Joe Ashton, who serves as both the mayor of River Oaks and city manager of Pantego, is running. He was elected in 2020 following an unopposed campaign to lead the small Tarrant County city that's kind of like surrounded by Fort Worth. And he was previously a city council member and mayor pro tem. So he is running for a water district seat. I look at that, I'm like, man, like, how do you have time for this? But I think mayor of River Oaks is probably more similar to what people perceive mayor or city council member in Fort Worth is, where we treat it like a part-time gig. Like, you still got responsibilities, but it's 7,500 people versus almost 1 million. So he's running for one of those.
I think he was on it earlier.
Okay. CB Team has officially announced his campaign to keep his seat. He was appointed to serve the remainder of Jim Lane's turn a few days ago. A few days ago. So he'll serve through May 6th, and then he has announced that he'll be running to keep his seat. But then the other seat that will be left open is Marty Leonard, who has indicated her plans to retire this year after 17 years on the board. So candidates have up until February 17th to file for that election, but the 2 seats that are up for election are the one that CB is currently holding, and then Marty Leonard, who's retiring. Now, when it comes to the Fort Worth ISD School Board, which I think this will be a really interesting election for that, because we have a new superintendent. Like, will just be really interesting to see who comes out of it and like how the dynamic of the board changes. But the first newcomer, parent Kevin Lynch, has filed to run for the District 5 seat, and he is challenging incumbent CJ Evans, who is seeking a second term.
District 5 covers some of the most western parts of Fort Worth ISD. And so CJ Evans is running again and has already put in her ballot. But this seemed like it could be a competitive race because she has a legit opponent who seems to be on top of it and proactive. If you're someone who's filing on day one, you're being...
and seems like he has the financial ability to put in money to make it competitive.
And I did see I that our school board, I heard this, I don't know if this is accurate, but it's the first time that our school board has been majority minority for Fort Worth ISD. So thought that was interesting.
I don't know if I realized that.
Yeah, I didn't realize it either. But I can just tell you who told me was on the school board. And I was like, really interesting. I didn't know that. And maybe they were talking specifically about minority in the sense of like also female-led school board. So this seems like going to be an interesting take. We'll see if there's going to be any other kind of battle for spots in the education. It looks like CJ Evans and Kevin Lynch are the first. I guess you got also Ann Dar is seeking her second term.
Yep.
She represents District 6, which covers parts of the TCU area and extends south past Sycamore School Road.
Yeah, that's kind of all we've got for now. I guess talking about the TCU area kind of leads us into our first loss for the week. And that is that last night, so Friday night, 2 teens were shot, one fatally, at the Whataburger right there on Berry, near Pascal High School. As of this time, there's not a suspect. We don't really know what happened, but 2 teenagers, 1 female and 1 male, were wounded and in critical condition. They were both taken to the hospital, where the 16-year-old boy died. The 17-year-old girl is critically injured but is still alive. We don't really know many details outside of that, or at least Chief Noakes hasn't released many details outside of that. But just really sad news to see a wake up to Saturday morning.
Yeah. You know, it was weird for me seeing this story, and it's when I first saw it, I was like, oh, why is this a story? You know, in the sense of, oh, they're just talking about the Whataburgers in East Side where we live off of, you know, Lancaster, and then I saw the TCU. They showed the picture of the Whataburger, and then there's a TCU logo across the street, and said, oh wow, this is why, you know, it's you know, Chief Noakes is there. I was really, you know, everything was like, wow, like this is a big deal. And I think it also, I just want to acknowledge, and it's not maybe the right time to, but I was just caught off guard of how bigger of a story this was. But it was, to me, location of this Whataburger compared to how often this happens in Star Telegram. And this is just on page 10, page 8 of people getting shot at Whataburgers on the East Side. But obviously, though, it could also be like you have Pascal teenagers. We're talking about underage dying, and when we talk about underage, we're usually talking about gun violence on the East Side among peers, but that doesn't seem like the case here. It seems like these 2 kids were just bystanders to something, but we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, a really sad situation that hopefully we'll, you know, get to learn some more about. I don't even think they've released the identities of the kids yet, but I know that, that'll be a tough thing for Pascal to work through. They've said they're going to have extra resources on hand for kids. And last week we talked about how, we have this budget surplus. The state is saying that they want to invest in mental health resources for kids. And it's like, the time was yesterday. The time was years ago.
Yep.
Like, let's get it started. Like, let's get kids the resources we need if we're not going to make it harder to take guns out of their hands.
Yep. And I know something that's also being very kind of discussed right now is the curfew laws and all that stuff. I wonder what this kind of imprint makes on that kind of narrative in the city, where it seems like the city council are, it seems like there's, 50% of them for a curfew, 50% of them not, potentially. So with something like this, I wonder how that impacts that story. I also think, like, how much of this should be like a Whataburger, like how much should a business be responsible for their business model being providing 2 a.m. food to people after bars? And, I'm even starting to think, like, obviously Texas, we're all about being free and whatever, and you could do whatever you want. But I mean, it just seems like Whataburger and places like Whataburger are a set for places like something like this to happen, because you're talking 2 a.m., you're talking late at night, you're talking after bars, you got people coming in their cars, they're hungry, and who knows who they see, who they talk to, they say something the wrong way, whatever. It just seems like something that can happen often, know. And so, like, what should be more of a responsibilities for the Whataburgers that stay open till those times sell out? That I wonder what they could do better, because what if it was one of their employees who just passed away or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, my loss kind of continues on this energy. Aaron D's lawyer requested for a new trial. There's not much news about it, but the lawyers are seeking a new trial for the police officer who got nearly 12 years in prison for killing a Tatiana Jefferson. Just take what you have, man.
I'm just like,
Why would you keep this up?
You got 12 years. You're probably, gonna have good behavior and get out after like 5 or 6 or whatever they set as the time for murdering somebody. And like, I know you only got convicted of manslaughter, but like, let's be real. Like, you took an innocent person's life for no reason, and you're walking away with, somewhere between 5 to 12 years, which is not insignificant, but it is significantly less than what you should be paying and for what you took from Tatiana Jefferson and her family. And I know, I'm sure that this is just kind of like part of the process.
I thought this was interesting. Lawyers believe a juror may have used social media to ask for suggestions for Dean's sentence. Like, why? I guess I don't know what the rules are around that, but
yeah, I think that the judge had told them that they can't. I mean, in general, you're not supposed to talk about it. I think the judge had specifically told them to keep details off of social media. I also that his lawyers believe a juror. Like, how would that have not come up during the middle of the trial? How would that have not been news while the trial was happening? Right? Like, I feel like it would have been pretty obvious if someone was like, "Hey, I'm a juror. Like, let's do a Twitter poll," like pulled an Elon Musk. Let's do a Twitter poll. I'll abide by the results of this poll. Should Aaron Dean be convicted of murder, manslaughter, not guilty? Like, well, that doesn't make any sense.
I know, right? Because believe, like, why would you believe? We would see it. There would be proof. Like, you don't have to believe it. It would be up there. Someone would have gotten a screenshot or something to tell you that this is a thing.
Yeah.
So,
moving on to our wins. This one was something I think we were both pleasantly surprised to see and read. Last year we gave the economic development plan a hard time because as it was set forth, it was like, we're going to double down on office space and everything. It was like, how, like, this is a plan for 1995, not 2023. But it looks like a couple more buildings, empty office buildings in downtown, have been sold to be redeveloped into living. The oil and gas building was purchased by Blue Lofts in early 2023, who announced plans to convert the building into 135 units. The adjacent Star Telegram building appears on their website as well, with a note of 105 units, which seems to indicate that at least part of that building will also be converted. And then a week after the oil and gas announcement, news broke the 1952 Encore building has sold and would be converted into 300 rental units by Chicago-based
awesome.
3L Real Estate. Like, we have talked about so much about how downtown needs to feel livable. Like, people need to live there. It needs to feel like an occupied space with dense mixed use development. And so, like, the library being sold with that intention, 2 or 3 more buildings down there, like, leaving the office days behind them and making it a livable space is going to be as transformational for downtown, if not more, than A&M being down there will be. Like, if downtown Fort Worth wants to thrive in the future, it needs to continue striving towards livability, and using these beautiful old buildings that are just empty or underused office space to do that. It is a massive step.
Yeah, they also, I mean, others on the list include the Crest Building, Sanger Lofts, as well. So kudos to that. And what's interesting though, like, is a part of this desperation, like, is a part of this, like, wow, we're vacant on our office game and I don't know how we get back. Or is it behavioral? Like, they think we're going to be able to fill them up. I hope we fill them up.
Yeah. I mean, you know, what was that recent report you talked about last week or 2 weeks ago where it was like Fort Worth apartment in occupancy rate is, you know, in like the 90s.
Yeah,
so,
which is insane.
Yeah.
Insane. My win is a simple win, but it's just I just want to acknowledge it because it's in my field of interests. A new app that connects parents to free resources. I've seen the billboard of this, but Parent Pass is an app that acts as a one-stop shop for resources ranging from where to find childcare and after-school programs to connecting parents to each other and finding lessons to teach at home. It kind of gives me a, hopefully it doesn't turn into Nextdoor, but it kind of gives me that kind of neighborhood feel, school app, but it's available to Fort Worth ISD parents. So far 3,000 people in the Funk are using the app, but it's available. And I think it's just cool that we're providing digital infrastructure and digital support for people. I mean, especially if you're new here, you just arrived, I need to put my kid in some childcare. What are we doing as a city to help those people? Because, you know, people are willing to move really quick if they have to then go put their kid somewhere else because someone else told them about this place. And so this is how you build community, keep people here, is helping them find ways to build their nest and, build their levers of support while they make economic income for their families.
Yeah, and with a kid, you like look at the weekend, you're like, what the F am I going to do with my kid this weekend? Like, we've been to the zoo 100 times. We, have been to the science museum 100 times. Like, what can I do this weekend that's not going to cost me money? Or what can I do with them after school that is going to be a safe place for them to hang out, meet other kids, whatever. Really cool to take that ambiguity, help take that ambiguity away from parents and just make it an easy thing. And make it a thing that, like, kids can have agency into also. Like, if they've got a phone or, parents can just give them the phone and say, go, scroll through this app, see if there's anything cool you want to do. I think that's great. Well, that is all for us this week. It was a little bit of a slower week, but a lot of smaller things that we got to hit on. Thanks again, as always, for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Later.
Dopamine swipe, follow us like double tap.